Thanks for joining me this week on the show. I'm so excited to welcome back a favorite guest of mine. She's right in my sweet spot with my passion for environmental health. The environmental aspect of stress is one that many of us overlook, and it is so important to take a look at how we can turn down the volume of stress in this aspect in our environment in order to support our overall well being. So this week, I'm thrilled to bring back Dr. Aly Cohen, a rheumatologist, integrative medicine specialist, and environmental health expert. She has just released her brand new book, Detoxify. It has got simple, actionable steps to help you see how you can move the needle and create a healthier, healing home environment. We have such a great conversation. I know you're going to get so much out of this, and I'm thrilled to have you back with us. Thanks for joining us this week. It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified. Welcome back. I am so happy to have you with us today for a conversation I am thrilled to be sharing with you. I am joined today by Dr. Aly Cohen. She is the co-author of the best-selling consumer guidebook, Non-Toxic: Guide to Living Healthy in a Chemical World. Her new book is available now. Detoxify connects the dots between everyday chemicals and the epidemic rise in immune disorders and autoimmune disease, and what we can all do about it. Dr. Cohen, I am thrilled to have you back with me on the show again. I had so much fun with you when you first joined me for an interview, and I'm thrilled about this new book. This is exactly the conversation we all need to be having. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for your support and for having me back on and sharing with your audience. I appreciate it.
We're going to go so many different directions, I know, by the end of this conversation. So just to begin, what was your impetus for writing this book at this time, and why do you think this is the conversation we all need to be having?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question because I've asked myself that too. I'm a rheumatologist by Western training, as well as integrative medicine. And then I layered on environmental chemicals and environmental health. And it really took about, I want to say, 20 years of clinical rheumatology to observe the changes in what we're seeing and how many people are showing up with very unusual immune or autoimmune conditions, even at very young ages, which is starting to happen with cancers, as we've seen, and also in those with no family history. And so we know that all of these things might be coming to a head. And that's what happened in my career. I sort of was learning in different sections. And it really came to a head as to how all three sections intersect. Not just what I know from a Western perspective about the immune system and the immune system disorders, but how our growing exposure to so many synthetic, unregulated chemicals in everything we love and do and eat and drink and put on our skin and breathe are really playing a major role in why we're seeing these numbers escalate. And so it was the right timing. It was the right point in my learning curve. And I felt like at this point, I could really explain it very well to people because it took me a long time to figure it out myself.
Yes, and I think as a topic, it can be so overwhelming. And so people start to get information and become aware of what we're exposed to and how it might be impacting our health. And I feel like it's just scratching the surface, but then we do, as you're saying, it's in everything that we apply on our skin, it's in the food we're bringing home, it's in the furnishings in our home. And not knowing where to begin, we kind of put the lid back on Pandora's box and try to pretend we're going to be fine. It's all fine.
Right. And listen, I was one of those people too. I mean, the interesting thing is that I went through medical school and residency and I was a trained doctor. And I was like, what do you mean chemicals are in our food that's not been tested for safety and toxicity? Or what do you mean our water systems are so outdated that they have literally the potential for thousands of chemicals every time we take a sip from tap water or even well water? So my understanding came from a place of disbelief 15 years ago when I was a young mom with young kids and young puppies and young everything. And it took a long time to understand the problem, but then also figure out solutions. And I think that's really the emphasis of what I write about, what I post about on the Smart Human, which is my platform on TikTok, Twitter, and all that. But it's also what I write about because my feeling is number one, no one's perfect. I mean, no one's going to get it perfectly, right? We're not going to eat perfectly or whatever we consider that to be. We're going to color our hair like I do. If we like to color our hair, we're going to want to go out and get our nails done. We're going to want to join people at birthdays and eat cake. We're going to travel where we have less access to the things that we're able to control at home. But the idea is that when we understand what the problem is in terms of the types of exposures we're having and where they come into our lives, and we can choose better and have those chemicals less in our body, we do reduce the risk of a variety of health conditions, not just even hormone related chemicals, which is what a lot of people have heard about, but especially immune system disorders, which is the basis of my training, which is rheumatology. So, we have a lot of control over a very uncontrollable situation in my mind. We have studies to show that when we swap out certain groups of foods or add in nutritional foods, that we can offset those exposure issues. And we have lots of things that we can do. So that's what I like to focus on. It's a very tough topic, no doubt about it, but it's a journey for everybody, and people shouldn't feel overwhelmed. My goal is to get people to feel empowered. And when you're empowered and you do things one thing at a time, particularly high yield things like choosing food groups that are less full of pesticides, like USDA organic, or getting a water filter system that's totally cost effective and not over the top for your kitchen and not a whole house. I mean, all of these things don't have to rob the bank. They don't have to put you out. And that's the goal, is smart decisions so that we can be healthier.
Absolutely. And before we get into the solutions and how we can take action and be empowered, I want to go back to what you're saying, which is if we lighten the load a little bit, then our body has the capacity to heal itself, right? Our kidneys and our liver are amazing detoxifying organs if we're not overburdening them to the point that they can't do what they need to do to function.
Absolutely. And that was why, believe it or not, I argued for the name of the book to be Detoxify. Actually, I have the book right here with my ink stained finger. And the reason is, the book had a lot of different changes to the title and to the subtitle, but it needed to be an active verb. I wanted Detoxify to be positive and empowering. And the reason being is because, like you said, our bodies have evolved for millions of years with clean food and clean air and clean water and nutritionally rich foods, which is a big component of this book, is understanding which foods are nutritionally full so that they can help offset some of the immune system effects of these chemicals. So we can be armed with that. But we've been evolving for a long, long time. And these chemicals, the vast majority of chemicals in the United States, which are unregulated, which do not require testing before going into the products that we use. And that's shocking to a lot of people. It's just been too short of a time. That's only been within the last 75 years. So it's a lot to hit the human immune system in a very short period of time without being able to evolve added extra mechanisms to get rid of them or remove them quickly. So what we need to do is add in some of our own smart behavior and our smart choices that can do the rest of that instead of relying on organs that are like shell shocked.
Exactly. And expecting more and more from them when they just are begging for support. We just need to support our organs so they can take
We need
care.
to listen to our liver and listen to our kidney and say, you know what? We're not going to bring home that chemical anyway from the store if we know it's going to make its way into your body or our bodies and then cause more harm to the body. It seems sort of counterintuitive, but a lot of people don't even know which chemicals are harmful and why. And that's something that we do talk about in the book so people can really see and survey. In fact, I have a body survey, some of the aspects of this book that I thought were really important to now incorporate from previous books is I want people to be able to walk through their lives and survey not only their own environmental history, which is really critical. Doctors aren't even doing it because we're not being taught this in medical school. So we have to do it ourselves. but we should be able to walk through our lives and do our own reasonable assessment of what could be coming into our bodies from which roots, whether it's what we choose for personal care, what we do with our drinking water. Of course, you can't control all your water everywhere, but there's plenty of great information on how to do it right 80% of the time, right? It's also important to see feminine care products we're using because that route through the vaginal canal is incredibly absorptive. So you have a lifelong, usage of feminine care products, you may want to tweak those so that you're not absorbing harmful chemicals in that route of the body. So there's an air quality and all the things we spray in our home. Maybe we don't want to do that, or maybe choosing better and why that would be invaluable to us. It's one of those things where the more you know, the better you do. And that's leading to hopefully reducing not just developing a disease that we don't want, particularly immune system, which is what I tend to focus on. But I talk about a lot of other things like metabolic diseases, like diabetes, obesity, weight gain, but also managing people's flares. And there's a lot of people who are currently managing immune and autoimmune disorders, even if it's eczema, if it's psoriasis, all the way through to Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, MS, and rheumatoid arthritis. We want to be thinking about how to keep those diagnoses, those diseases quiet. And this plays into that as well because we're learning how to not stimulate the immune system.
Yes. And so that was beautiful. A quick survey of the extent, kind of the spectrum of those immune disorders, from skin irritations to more chronic systemic situations like Crohn's and arthritis, of course, which so many people suffer with. And there's several different types of arthritis that people struggle with that impact them in very different ways. And so, how do you see that changing in your years in practice? What do you see people coming in with, and what has been their experience as now you're able to offer a more holistic approach, whereas before it was more kind of medications or simply patching the problems?
Absolutely. And, as a rheumatologist, I see very sick people. I see people who are not so sick that medicines really play a really terrific role in a temporary way necessarily, or maybe for some of the sicker folks longer. They're fabulous. I'm glad we have medication. The question is, do we need them reflexively? Do we need them out of the starting gate? Can we think of other integrative approaches, some evidence-based integrative approaches that maybe keep us from initiating medicines either quickly or even at a lower dose? And then also, what can we do to reduce the exposures that are actually instigating the problem? Whether it's fixing some of the gut microbiome, health related issues, the gut is the direct receiver to food and water. So if we can clean those things up, we can actually offset some of the changes to the very vulnerable gut microbes that live there and protect us. And so there's lots of things we can do. Number one, by removing the things that kind of come at us and are in our lives as best we can. And then there's this other component of how do we feed the body really nutritious components. I call them human fertilizer, that through anthropology and evolution, we've learned help the body thrive and offset a lot of dangerous environmental toxins. So there's this give and take. In my practice, I've been now practicing rheumatology for 20 years. So I don't know, something about hitting that number 20 gave me some in my mind, I've been doing this a long time. I have a lot to say about a lot. Even watching the pharmaceutical industry change and what's been available that wasn't available 20 years ago, all of that. And what we've seen now is an epidemic rise of immune and autoimmune disorders. So between 7 and 14% of the US population now suffers with one of over 80 autoimmune diseases and immune disorders. And so we have seen this. It's not because we're getting better at diagnosing. I wish we could say that, but we're seeing more of these conditions. And a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs, God love them, they are very good at quieting down acute situations, prednisone and topical steroids or inhalers. There's lots of great things. But what I want to focus on and really help people think about is the long-term goal of changing a little bit of lifestyle here and there, which absolutely, having done this now for a good 15 years, integrative approaches, we can really reduce a lot of what we think we need with medications just by changing some very reasonable behaviors. It's not over the top. And that's what I want people to realize. This is not a stretch. This is stuff that everybody can do for themselves and for their families.
Yes. And the numbers, when you think about that, 1 in 10, even more being impacted by these disorders, which in some cases, I mean, even a skin irritation can be debilitating. I know my
Mhm.
mom struggled with eczema for years as a nurse, washing her hands, throughout the day. I mean, it impacts everything. And you were saying earlier that we're seeing it even younger patients these days.
Yeah, what we're seeing is younger, not only just cancers, which by the way, cancers are not just cancers, they're also immune system related because we now have therapies that are directed at the immune system to manage many cancers. We also have cancer therapies that end up developing those patients autoimmune diseases by the nature of how those drugs are saving their lives.
Mhm.
So it's a necessary side effect is to get some type of autoimmune disease because we know the body is not siloed into systems. The endocrine system speaks to the immune system, it speaks to the neuroendocrine system. So to think that they're siloed is something that not only should we not hold on to, but because we can utilize that information to even help our bodies. You know what I mean? And that's how we've done it with cancer therapies. But, our diet and our food system has changed so dramatically, as has our drinking water quality, which I do really emphasize in terms of volume of anything into the body. We really should be paying a lot more attention to our drinking water quality and how to filter that at home and take it with us as much as we can in glass and stainless steel and all those. And reverse osmosis happens to be one of my most recommended filter type if people can vet those. And I certainly give a lot of information about that in the new book. But the idea is younger people are experiencing a lot of conditions that would normally be thought of as adult type of conditions. We know obesity is rather rampant. We know diabetes in young kids is rampant, which has a lot to do with environmental chemicals, especially in food and drinking water. But we're now seeing immune disorders such as Hashimoto's, which is thyroid autoimmune disease, and thyroid conditions, hypothyroid. And some of that can be completely, as I talk about in the book, prevented if we even just had the right nutritional value in either our food, but even supplements that I do recommend and how to vet those out. For instance, iodine, something no one thinks about. We always think about vitamin D3, which is so critical, and I talk about, but iodine is one of the cheapest micronutrients in the world, but we don't make it. We have to get it from food or we have to get it from supplements, but it should be consistent. And iodine sits in the thyroid gland and protects it. And because we don't eat salt anymore with iodine, right? People gave up table salt for sea salt, Himalayan, Celtic, kosher. Those typically do not have iodine in them. So we're missing these avenues of nutritional sufficiency, so to speak, in our diet because our diets and our food quality has changed. So when we tweak that, or even take a multi that has a good, reasonable amount of iodine, we can start offsetting some of the nutritional deficiencies that kind of play into us getting sicker, potentially even at younger ages. So it's just something I really emphasize is nutritional sufficiency, in addition to taking away some of the things that really irritate our body's immune system.
Yes, yes. I think that's really helpful to think about that. It's not only about trying to avoid or delete some of the things that are coming in, but by nourishing our bodies, then our bodies, again, are going to do what they're designed to do, which is to protect and to heal ourselves.
Absolutely, and there's lots of examples. I use iodine, I use vitamin D, I talk about multivitamin. I want people to get great quality stuff, which doesn't equal cost, and that's really important. I want people to know that you can get really high quality clean products, not just foods, not just vetting water filters and cosmetics and personal care, all those products, but supplements are such an outrageously wild, wild west and very confusing. And I really try to hone in on how to understand labels and what to be looking for so that you can really do this anywhere in any place you go. You'd be able to take a bottle off the shelf and understand how to read a label on that.
Well, I think that's so important because I know there is a growing disparity in terms of the way people feel they have access to quality foods, getting to buy the organic produce versus people who are living in food deserts and don't have access to maybe buying those top end bulletproof supplements or whatever's the hot new thing online. And, so to kind of really bring it down and democratize it and say, all you're looking for is this is so empowering. That's really
I
incredible.
love that you said that. I love that you said democratized because really it is true. We are living in a place where The heavy hitter biohacker anti-aging world is really very robust and it's all really, really interesting. But for the mere mortals in the middle or below who are just trying to find a vegetable every day, who want to at least try to get some good sleep, who are working a few jobs, have lots of, stuff on their table, it's not necessarily easy for them to access the things that they might need. So what I talk about is how do you get the highest yield nutritional foods? Like one of the things I talk a lot about is frozen USDA organic. Why organic matters? Because
Mhm.
it's literally the only food regulation that we actually have. We have the FDA for pharmaceuticals, has its issues, but generally has oversight. And then we have USDA organic. Our Safe Drinking Water Act that protects our 160,000 wastewater treatment plants that take care of the water for 80% of the US, that legislation is from 1976. So it has not changed, even though thousands and thousands of chemicals enter the market every year. So the idea is that we don't have a lot of oversight, and what we do have, USDA organic with the circle, the logo, is remarkably beneficial to human health. It's not perfect, but it's really quite good. And frozen USDA organics are really the best way to get both nutritional value, much better even than the supermarket organics. Because organic is organic, you're going to definitely have thousands less pesticides, fertilizer chemicals, and synthetic chemicals in there. But in terms of produce, when it's flash frozen and then put into the supermarkets, it's maintaining all that nutritional value from being picked. Whereas a lot of fresh supermarket produce that's organic travels for weeks on end, maybe frozen for a month or two at a low temperature refrigerator. So the nutrient value starts to reduce over time. So again, big box stores like ShopRite, and I don't know what you have where you are, but we have so many big box stores that are now national chains that carry their own line of USDA organic produce. And it's definitely worth looking into because that brings the cost very, very low. And also the accessibility goes up.
Yes, yes. And I really seen buying dollars make an impact. When I was learning, this is, of course, is a couple of years ago now, it's not breaking news, but maybe to some, that you can get organic food at Walmart, that's us making a dent in the system. That is big retailers noticing that we are demanding different products.
Absolutely. There's nothing like moving the market. And whether that's intentioned based on a return on investment or not, and financially, who cares? The more access to cleaner products, cleaner food, the market for reverse osmosis has gone up, but the cost has gone way down. I've watched the market for at least 12 years on these systems, and they come down every year because there's competition. And so I think that that's really something that we can all wrap our heads around is having the democratization of access to the things that keep humans healthy. Because money does not change quality in some regards. For instance, all the fanciest lipsticks and makeup in the US are loaded with toxins, a lot of them. I mean, the idea is that you're paying for something of beauty, so to speak, but you're not paying for the quality and the safety necessarily. And I can find a low toxicity lipstick in the corner drugstore like CVS or Walgreens. You just have to know how to find those. And that's what I teach and is available. But I pull it into the book because I want people to be able to walk into any environment and really have the right tools to get good products that are safe.
Yes, and I think everybody needs this book. Environmental health has been a passion of mine ever since I left my first career working in theater because of the chemicals that I was exposed to in the shop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just know that there are so many routes of entry. And as you said, when we started off, it isn't about hitting perfection. Health is a journey, it's not a destination. So it's the choices that we make every day. And the more we know, the more we can weigh those choices. So, beyond everybody needs to get the book, who are you hoping the most will be reading this book?
I think about that and I really want it out there because the material is so important. It comes from a place of honesty and it comes from a place of just frustration as a physician, wanting people to be healthier and seeing the system change. I really want pretty much everyone who has ever suffered from an immune or autoimmune disease to know that I'm out there trying to make it better and give them some insights that they may not be getting from their own healthcare system for whatever reasons and are relying on TikTok and a bunch of areas just because they're desperate. I hear you. I also want people to be thinking about, even teenagers. I teach a lot of high school classes. I want people to be thinking about their body, not just for now, but into the future. One day they'll be getting older and things will catch up with them, or they'll want to have children and maybe they want to have a cleaner set of choices and make their body a little healthier and less toxic when they're going into that process. So I think it applies to everybody because it's not just managing a current issue or health issue. It's also thinking about how to not get sick in the first place if you can control some of those parameters. Look, whether you get sick is a dance between your genetics, right? Your environment and your lifestyle. And the argument here is that we can control 2 out of 3 of those, generally speaking. We have genetic effects even from these choices that we make, but they're not changing genes, they're changing expression. And if we can keep some of those sick expression genes quiet through our lifestyle, that will have a whole host of benefits as we move into our older ages. It applies to everyone. I hope everyone thinks of it as a tool book. I have a 21-day plan so that if people are really nervous about how to onboard some of these changes, I have it. I want people to think like from day one, never even made a change in their life. This is something you could dive into in a very reasonable, non-stressful way.
I love that. And I think too, especially, I hope that anybody who is planning to have a family, or of course, if you have a family, do not pass go, get the book. But if you're planning a family, I know that when women become pregnant, they get a shopping list of things. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And that can be really overwhelming. But even before that point, the more you can prepare yourself in your home to be the best environment to nurture a new life, because so much happens in that preconception and during the pregnancy for mothers and for, laying the whole foundation for the lifetime of health. So,
Absolutely. Your point is well taken. And again, I'm always thinking about my patients and my audience. I personally never want to ever blame someone's bad choices or what I consider bad, they consider bad. It's not really, it's relative what a bad choice is. But the idea is that you never want to feel regret because when we don't know any better, because I had children and I had no clue. I was eating McDonald's and I think I had the deluxe breakfast every morning of my first pregnancy. I'm not kidding. And I write about it that if I can figure this out, it took me a lot longer than I want anyone else to figure it out. But I think the idea is that there's not perfection here. It's just a matter of changing things out. But understanding that the placenta itself, I mean, just getting back into the biology of the problem, these chemicals have been, we're talking over 95,000 that are now, as a general number, since beyond World War II. And a lot of these chemicals really shot up in terms of plastic chemicals, pesticide chemicals, chemicals that were used to make plexiglass for the military and rayon and nylon and all sorts of things. It made our life a lot easier, but no one ever followed through on these materials moving into our bloodstream, moving into our environment and our lakes and streams that circle back into our bodies through the water system, and how they break down in the environment, whether it's long half-life or short half-life. And I think now that we know better to try to work on green chemistry and try to create better products, we don't have enough time for that while we're on this planet at this moment. We really should be working on this now because the chemicals do actually cross the placenta into growing fetus. In fact, everyone talks about this very important study back in 2005 from the Environmental Working Group when they looked at just 10 babies, 10 random babies, their cord blood, the blood between mom and baby. When the baby was born, they tested the blood in the cord and found over 200 industrial chemicals. That was 2005. What I want to say is that we're never going to be perfect. Moms should never be blamed for their choices, but it's an opportunity for both mom and dad, really, or both parents, to really make those changes as early as they're able to. And certainly even after pregnancy, there's never a time when it's too late, even in elderly ages. So it's just kind of something to think about that we can show. I show in studies that we can reduce those levels just by making simple swaps and changing some behaviors.
yes, yes. And I think that's the most empowering thing, right? It's not too late to make changes that have really big impact just by becoming aware and picking one area to begin. And so I love that you've created a little action plan that people can just follow along. They don't have to come up with a strategy and figure out how to begin. That's beautiful. You just kind of walk them through the process. We're not here to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, day 1, day 2, and then you're off and running. It's really not one of those things where I want people to be, like, languishing. I also have a food pyramid where we always think of food pyramids as like, "All right, I'll have some beef and protein and all different macros of different." What I wanted people to see is a kind of a food pyramid of thinking even about our food containers and our drinking water systems and all the way up through some of our food choices and the quality, and so I really worked hard on that. I really wish I had that 15 years ago when I had young kids and was trying to figure this all out. Now I feel like I can give someone a visual to really help them move along through the process. And there'll be bad days, there'll be bad weeks, you'll be on vacation. Life is life, which is how I incorporate into the 4 A's of environmental health, which I talk about in the book. You can't be crazed and stressed that it restricts you from making really
Right.
positive changes.
Yeah. Well, and I think FDA, if you're listening, new food pyramid available, highly
Yeah, I'm
researched and
listening.
formulated.
Yeah. I'm not
Holy
sure if I
nice.
could wait for them to listen, but look, we're all trying to contribute. I have colleagues doing a lot of the work in the food system, and we're all trying to pick our lane and make our impression and helping people. This was sort of just the area that I know so well, the immune system, rheumatologic diseases, and then combining it with what I learned with chemicals. And then the solutions are really the integrative medicine approaches. So it really worked in a package. And that's hopefully what people will feel that they're getting what they need.
Yes. And I think it's always fascinating to look back through your career 20 years ago. Certainly, I'm sure, wouldn't have imagined you would be here compelled to write these books. 15 years ago, that awareness was definitely coming together. But, even your opportunity to work with Dr. Andrew Weil early on and have that influence, the father of integrative medicine. I mean, it's just incredible how the pieces come together to give that inspiration and ability to lead this. And it doesn't get press. It's not sexy, but it should be because we do
Yeah.
have to be empowered.
Yeah. It's not sexy. It's a tough topic. What I found is that more and more people are getting sick and they're looking for answers. And so it's become something, unfortunately, that people have had to look into. And a lot of people are doing their own research. And I worry about that because my experience having been a clinician is that people who are in a lot of pain or people that are in fear or people who are aesthetically having changes, weight or hair or whatever, we make desperate choices. And that includes me in my own life. So I think what we need to do is just take a deep breath and make sure that we figure out the messenger, understand the science behind what we're being told. As I tell my teenage son, where are your sources? Tell us where you got that information. Really, where's the basis of science in that decision as much as you can, So I think it's important that, again, as much as people are having trouble, I want them to find the right resources. And there's a whole section of resources that I would weigh anything on that they're getting it right in terms of how to look up gardening information or how to look up supplements and how they interact or not interact with medications. These are really critical things to learn, and I just want people to have it and not get hurt.
Absolutely. It's wonderful that information is so much more easily available, but hopefully everybody's aware that, you can go have a conversation with Chat GPT and it can just make things up. So, understanding the source of your information is everything, right? The influencers online aren't, in most cases, citing their sources. And so,
Right.
finding that trustworthy source that we can go to get non overwhelming information so we can make those changes is so important.
Yeah. And I worry about the world of information. Again, I think we're all worried a little bit, but when it comes to health and wellness, I think a lot of information, unfortunately, either doesn't have enough science to argue its use or can be taken out of context and can really harm people. It's just reasonable to just figure out who your messenger is. And there's lots of good messengers out there, my colleagues that I consider messengers to me and learning from them. It's just one of those things, but hopefully people are still have integrity and are contributing in a way that makes sense and is honest to keep people from getting sick.
And what I see a lot in people is that we're much more willing to make changes for the benefit of the people that we love before we're going to make changes for our own benefit. And so hopefully this will be some inspiration if you look at this through the lens of you can be supporting the health of your children, the health of your partner, helping your parents age better, and looking for these resources in that light, if that's what it takes to compel change.
In 20 years, I've seen some of the worst cases of rheumatoid that show up, swollen hands and joints. I've seen some of the worst cases of lupus. I've seen some of the worst cases of health conditions that you could imagine. And it's remarkable how reversible many of these conditions are. Are they completely cured? I can't argue that about any of condition because you have to know the person individually and where these triggers are coming from. Stress, poor sleep, drinking water quality, overuse from occupational. There's a variety of things that if you take those away or reduce them or manage them better, adding in nutrition and taking away a lot of these harmful things is with many cases. I have patients in my book that I write about. It's amazing how much better people can do and how much better they can feel. And I say this because I live it. I work with these patients and I don't want people to ever think that they can't, that the horse has left the stable and they've gotten so bad that they can't reverse. I have absolutely seen the opposite over these years. And that's why I really want to share that because I don't think we get enough of the good stories.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, because I think that does bring back a lot of inspiration. I think in the typical doctor's office, a patient
Yeah.
is overwhelmed by the diagnosis. They're going home with a list full of prescriptions, and doctors just don't know how to recommend nutrition changes, what lifestyle changes to be inquiring about or suggesting, asking about what's in your home. And so
Mhm.
it's up to us to fill in the blanks. And I'm so excited this book is available and people can make it not overwhelming. There is enough overwhelm in life. We do not need to bring one more.
Now, I say keep it simple, stupid. I'm all about high yield, inexpensive changes that have real value to them. And again, reemphasizing this is a journey because so much of it is keeping the confidence to keep moving through some of this stuff. And if you think that everything is a loss, you just never have that positive reinforcement. So, yeah, I do hope that people embrace this kind of slow, change that's not a diet, it's not a quick fix. It's about layering components in that anthropologically have been part of the human cellular activity for millions of years and trying to go backwards to where we were with less toxins and chemicals that fill our lives. We can use and get everything we need now without a vast majority of the products that were marketed. We don't need them. We just been brainwashed. And it's getting around that, having recipes for cleaning products in here and even deodorant. I just want people to realize you can shop better, you can make products, you have recipes for food in here that help detox. And the idea is just to really get our bodies in a cleaner state so that we can be healthier ultimately.
I'm so excited. I already know I'm going to be getting multiple copies now that this is finally available. I've been waiting and waiting, sending this to family and friends. It's going on my bookshelf behind me because knowing is one thing, doing is another thing. And now is always a wonderful time to start.
No time like the present. Sometimes it is waiting until kids go off to college or the summer begins or you're back from break with the kids or you get a break from work. The idea is taking care of yourself and having the right tools and information to do so. And where that is in your life, I support. So, it's getting it right for yourself.
Yes, tuning back into that intuition and helping it work for you. And is there anything we didn't have a chance to cover through the course of our conversation already?
I really just wanted to make sure people understand the point is to really do this at your own pace, that this is not wackadoodle fringe recommendations. This is not high colonics and starving yourself for a week. And it's just not that. It's real stuff. And I think teenagers get it. My kids get it. I think a lot of people get it. And in fact, teenagers, if anything, are the most aggressively trying to make their bodies cleaner. You'd be amazed. It's so fun to watch. So having this as part of their growth into adulthood is such a pleasure. So check it out. And I work really hard. So I hope people will get some great information from it. That's the goal, and spread the word.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I also do want to mention I do post on the Smart Human. So for people who are sort of dabbling and making changes, just whatever their pace, I post on the Smart Human on all the different platforms. And I have my own podcast where I interview people I think are far smarter than me. And I want people to be able to have that access for free, no matter how they get their information. I just want it to be clean and understandable.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Check out The Smart Human. The interviews are fantastic. Again, it's always great to hear information, to distill it. You can listen to the same conversation 3 times and still be getting fresh information from it. So I will also be sharing in the show notes a link to our previous podcast where we did dive in a little bit more to the impact that you're seeing in programs where schools are willing to bring in this information and teenagers, the light bulbs are going off and their buying habits start out in a better direction. And that's so powerful. So I love all of the work that you do and all the ways in which you keep bringing it out, moving it
Right.
forward.
Yeah, listen, I would have no voice if it wasn't for you and for other people that support this material and this education. Thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. It's always an honor to engage with you, to cheer you on. I'm definitely here rooting for this book. Again, I think everybody needs it. So let's all dive in. Might be a book club topic. Check back.
Ooh, I'm coming.
Thank you so much, Aly. I'm so grateful for your time and your work, and I'm thrilled about this book. I can't wait to get Detoxify out and everybody diving into it.
Thank you so much, Susie. I appreciate it. Be well, everybody.
Take care. Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at HappifiedLife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.